Hello YouTube, today I'm coming at you with that video that you've been promised for so long, that very special one. I apologize ahead of time because it's going to come in 2 installments. There was just too much footage to put in one video. But this video is going to show you how to make this. This is my bladed bracer. Very proud of it. If you make one, I hope that you enjoy yours. Please be responsible with it. This is obviously not a toy. But it's still really cool, and I hope you enjoy the video. Now, I'd like to mention before I get into the supplies list, this is going to be kind of a long, difficult build compared to other things that I've done. So if I seem frustrated or tired or just like I lack motivation, just know it's because hours, even days possibly, of my life is condensed into like a few minutes of yours. So just like I said, keep in mind, I'm spending a lot of time on this compared to how much you're actually going to get to see. So if it does seem like I'm irritated, don't get mad at me like, what's this guy's problem? I mean, everything is going great. It is on camera, but who knows, it may be going terribly, and I've just cut that part out. So, like I said, bear with me on this one. Now let's get into the supplies. Okay, so the materials list is kind of extensive. You're going to need 1/8 inch rivets, aluminum and steel, but if you can only get one or the other, definitely get the steel, because you can use the steel where you would otherwise use aluminum, but you can't really use aluminum where you use steel. It would just be too weak. You're also going to need this aluminum sheet metal, like the kind that they use for ducts. This has to be that specific kind of aluminum, because if you get another kind of aluminum, it's not going to spring. This is very, very bouncy. It just snaps back into place and you really want it to bounce. I have here 3 throwing knives. I am not wasting perfectly good throwing knives. 2 out of 3 of these have cracked. You're going to need cardboard. These are, I believe, number 8 washers. Yep, and these are actually just a little bit too large for the rivets, which are 1/8 of an inch. So I got number 8. This is number 8-32 nuts. The rivets fit very snugly in the nuts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack them. I'm going to put the rivets on the outside and the washers on the inside. You're going to need a piece of angle iron. This is 1 inch on the side. It's 1/8 inch thick, and I'm not really sure how long it is, but it needs to be, whatever length of angle iron you get, it needs to be able to go from your elbow to your wrist twice, with some extra left over for mistakes and stuff. Then you're going to need leather. The heavier leather you can get, the better. And you're going to need enough of this to go around your forearm 2 times. I have some heavy waxed thread. You probably don't need waxed thread, but whatever thread you do get, it needs to be heavy, which is why I have the waxed thread, because waxed thread is heavy. You'll also need some eyelets. And the set of eyelets that I got came with the anvil and the setter. If you don't have an anvil and a setter, make sure that these come with the eyelets you buy. If you do, then great. You just need eyelets. Okay guys, so for certain parts of this video, I'm going to be doing a voiceover because there are certain areas that I either didn't have enough information, or I forgot something, or after I went ahead and did the build, I realized that there was a better way to do it. So just listen for these little segments of audio throughout the video. They'll give you helpful tips and things. What I want to say right now, though, is in the materials list, I actually missed rubber cements, T-candles, packing tape, and nylon cord of some sort. And that does it for materials. Now we can get on to the tools. Okay, so tools you're going to need, surprisingly, is somewhat minimal. You're going to need an 1/8 inch drill bit, assuming you use 1/8 inch rivets, which I believe are the most standard size you can get. For this, it needs to be cobalt. If you don't have a cobalt drill bit, get one. When I say cobalt, I don't mean brand. Obviously, this is not a cobalt drill bit. As far as the brand goes, I mean material. You will need a punch. This needs to have a tip that is the same size as the eyelets you're going to use. You'll need these vice grips. Doesn't really matter what size they are. They don't need to open very wide. They just need to be able to hold really tightly. And you'll need a riveter. Some tools that I don't have here because they're out in my garage are a drill press. You could use a drill, but I would really recommend using a drill press if you have one, because then your holes will be almost completely lined up. You will need an angle grinder, and you'll also need a belt sander, assuming your knives that you have are not sharp and you want them to be sharp. That should do it for tools. Again, unless I find out in the middle of the build that I am missing something. Okay, so the tools I missed that you're going to need are a large needle. This needs to be able to accept the thread that you're going to use to sew your leather together. You're also going to need needle nose pliers, a Sharpie, a utility knife, and tin snips. And back on the Sharpies, it would be good if you had fine and ultra fine tip. You will also need a hammer, a measuring tape or a ruler. I would recommend a measuring tape, and a protractor. Okay, so the first step, as you can see, is take the cardboard, make a template out of it. I've already kind of started like a rough shape here. As you can see, these cutouts here are for the elbow joints, so that when I have it on, I can still bend my arm up and it fits comfortably through here. It is still a little bit tight around my wrist, and I don't want it quite that tight. The reason it shouldn't be quite that tight is because this design is going to use 2 layers of leather. There's going to be one on the inside as sort of a cushion, and then the one on the outside is actually going to lace up. So these inside edges don't really need to be super close. So I'm probably going to take a little bit more off of that. Okay, so here is the finished product. This has got to look like the most goofy, lopsided shape you've ever seen, but this is actually what fits my arm, and it doesn't matter what it looks like, as long as your design fits your arm, then that's what you want to go with. As you can see, there's a considerable amount of room there where the laces should be. That's because, like I said, this is going to be 2 layers. So the second layer is actually where the laces are going to come in. This is just as a cushion and to fasten things onto, so you don't really want it to be super tight. Next thing we do is make the outer piece of cardboard, the outer template, that will actually have the laces included. So the best way to go about this is actually just to draw this outline, because you want it to fit exactly the same, except on these edges where the laces are going to be. On those edges, you want to leave probably 1/2 inch minimum, and then as you're cutting the cardboard out, you can actually put it on your arm and see how you want things to fit. But to start out, just do this outline with some extra on these 2 edges here. Okay, so here's the outline of the outer layer. I don't know for sure if I'm going to need this much. I just went and added on quite a bit of extra just in case. Now what we need to do is cut that out and lay it on top of this other template that we already have, see how everything fits. Okay, so you should have your outer and your inner layers. You need to fit them together and curl them over your arm to see just how much margin you need on the outside here. Okay, so that looks pretty good. If you've gotten to the point where you're happy with the way it fits, you'll need to fix these together. Okay, so after taping those together, you'll need Sharpie. Okay, I want this bracer to have 8 eyelets, so I need to figure out where the best places will be for them. So this is going to have to go back on my arm, and I can mark the holes there. Alright, so when you're marking the holes for your eyelets, you don't want them to be either too close to your wrist or too close to your joint, because when you're moving around, you want the bracer to be able to flare just a little bit up at the top and down here at the bottom. So wherever you put your eyelets, you need to have a little bit of room between the bottom and the top. So I think I'm going to move my eyelets in probably about 1 inch. Now what you'll need to do is measure the distance between your 2 dots and divide that up evenly so that your 4 eyelets, no matter what the distance is from the bottom or the top, the distance in between the individual eyelets is going to be exactly the same, if you can do that at all. Now, whatever the distance is between the eyelets on one side is not necessarily going to be the distance on the other side. This side of my bracer is longer than this one. So the eyelets are going to be further apart over here, but that's okay. It will still lace up effectively. Just make sure that the distance is evenly spaced between each row of eyelets. Once you've marked out your holes with even distances between each hole on each side, you'll need to punch the holes out just for the template. Make sure that you use a punch that is the same size as your eyelets. Now obviously you don't need to put eyelets into the cardboard, that's just unnecessary. The holes are just there so that you know where to put your markings on the leather. Okay, so after you've punched the holes in your cardboard template, as you can see, I decided to go with 5 holes on each side rather than 4. Once you've got the holes punched, you're going to need to draw on the back of the cardboard template where it is that you want your blade bracket to be. Just put the eyelets where you think they would normally be if this were the real thing, which for me is going to be pretty much dead center on the middle inside of my forearm. Assuming that my hand is just going to be sitting there casually, it would probably be best to have the blades about here. Well, that's just about dead center. So unless you want your blades like on the underside of your forearm, like along here, or the top side, which I would recommend not doing that because that would be obviously dangerous to your bicep when you come up. The underside might be slightly less dangerous, but I would recommend probably just putting them dead center. So now we have the line. Now what we need to do is work out spacing. How long do we want the bracket to be? I probably don't want this, for me personally, to be the entire length, just because I want there to be a little bit of flex in the leather up at the top of my wrist right here. So probably have the bracket for those blades start a little bit back. As for the bottom though, it doesn't really need to flex, so I'll probably just extend that out all the way. So that's where the bracket will stop, and like I said, I'll just have it stop down here at the very bottom. Next thing we're going to need to do is actually get the angle iron and the blades that we're going to use and figure out how wide things are going to be so we know how much of this outer layer to cut out. Okay, like I mentioned earlier, your angle iron should be 1/8 of an inch thick. So with that in mind, you can probably compare your blades and figure out just how thick those are. These look like they're also 1/8 of an inch thick. So assuming 1/8 of an inch here with the blade, 1/8 of an inch for each layer of angle iron, that means you're going to have 3/8 of an inch sticking up out of the outer layer. So you're going to need a slot from where the bracket will start up here at the top to where it's going to end all the way down at the bottom. And that slot's going to have to be 3/8 of an inch all the way down. So with that in mind, get your measuring tape and make sure that your line is straight all the way down, and make sure that you have a perfectly even hole so that it's not off center one way or the other. Alrighty, so that is the hole that I need to cut out. Now keep in mind, this is only for the outer layer. Only the outside of your template needs cut. The inside needs to stay completely intact so that you don't have metal coming through the bracer and scraping on your arm. That would not be fun. Now if I can just figure out where I put my utility knife, I can go ahead and cut this out. So that does it for the template. Now we get to actually take the measurements that we have with this cut and put it onto the angle iron. Okay, so put this angle iron back in the cut that I made. Take the Sharpie. You'll want to mark where it is that you need to cut the angle iron. Now, I should tell you this. The line that you're going to end up putting on your angle iron that you've drawn using your template is actually going to be just a smidge longer than you need it. So when you go to cut this, make sure to cut on the shorter side of the line, if that makes sense. Another thing that I should tell you is, since the angle iron is at a 90-degree angle, hence the name, you're going to actually need 2 lines on the inside. So once you've marked this piece of angle iron, this side of it, you're going to want to flip it over, put it back in the template, and mark the other side, just so that you have the line that you can rely on the entire time. And honestly, you may even want to flip the thing over and put a line on the back side, and then do the same thing again. That way you have lines on every single side of the angle iron, and no matter where you're cutting, you're going to know where your line is. Now that you've done this, you're going to need to flip your angle iron around and mark it the same way on the other end. Or you could go ahead, cut this off the line, move it up, mark it, and cut it again. But since I'm able to just flip this around and put the marks on the end without cutting it, I'm going to go ahead and do that. That way I can make all my cuts at once. Something you need to know: if the lines that you have on your angle iron for some reason aren't 90-degree cuts, just ignore the lines, if you will. You still need to cut in the same location as the line, but don't follow the line. It's very important to have a 90-degree angle because it needs to be clean and it needs to be 90 degrees. Okay, after you have cut your lengths of angle iron, and if you had a goof up, sort of like I did there, as you can see, it's not a perfect cut on this end here. Don't worry about that. If you do have a goof up like that, you will end up cutting it off later, so it's not really important. Now you need to drill the holes where the rivets are going to go through and hold your blade. So at this point, you need to figure out what angle you want your blades to sit at. I was thinking somewhere between like a 25 and a 45-degree angle for mine. So for this next step, you're going to need a protractor. It may also be helpful if you don't actually use your protractor until you've laid your blade against the steel and figured out exactly what angle you want it to be at. And then after you've done that, maybe use the protractor and measure it. Thinking about like that ought to be good. So let's figure out just exactly what that angle is here. It's looking like it's a little bit larger than 40 degrees, but I think I'm just going to go with 40 degrees anyways, because I'm not really sure where the axle on this angle is anyhow. So assuming a 40-degree angle, we now need to mark out holes to drill along that line, or whatever you decide your angle needs to be. Just take note that your holes are all in exactly that same angle, no matter where they are on your bracket, so that when you have your blades fixed, one's not up here, and then one's here, and then one's over here. Unless you want to do that, in which case go ahead. By all means, go ahead. Okay, so after I marked up the angle iron, it's important to note you need to mark it on the inside, because if you mark it on the outside, you're going to end up clamping these two pieces together and you won't be able to see it. It needs to be on the inside, right here, so then you can clamp the two cuts of angle iron together, and all you have to do is just drill through once, and it ensures that your holes are in exactly the same spot on both sides. I am going to put, as you can see, 3 rivets, at least that's the plan, 2 at the base and 1 up at the top. 3 rivets in my blade. Now, if for some reason the blade you're using can accept more, I would say definitely go with more. And if your blade can not accept 3 rivets, if there's just physically not enough width in the blade for that, I would recommend probably getting a different blade that can, because you're going to need a lot of strength in this whole build overall, but especially where the blades are concerned. So with that said, I'm now ready to go drill the holes. Okay, so helpful tip for drilling the holes. When you drill the hole or holes that are closest to the inside angle or the bottom of the angle iron, be very careful how close you get to that, because I found that I drilled my holes just a smidge too close, and when I was trying to pop the rivets in, they were rubbing on the leather as I was trying to put them through the holes. So be very careful that you drill the holes high enough that you are able to push them over the leather with ease and through the holes and then pop them. Okay, for the drilling of the holes, you're going to need the 3-in-1 oil to keep your bit lubricated. You'll need your bit, of course, the angle iron pieces, clamps, You'll also need some wood to put under your angle iron so that you know when you've drilled through, and also to help support your angle iron. You'll also want to check inside your motor housing to see if you have the right speed selection for the material you are drilling through. Otherwise, you will end up burning up your drill bit. Okay, just need a bit of oil and I'm ready to go. Okay, once the holes are drilled, we're ready to clean up the front end of the angle iron. You do this by just taking whatever angle you're going to use for the blades, drawing that onto the front, and then cutting that off with the angle grinder. The reason I have this all clamped up, and as you can see I have some rivets in it, those rivets are not popped. Do not pop your rivets because obviously your blades aren't in there. But the reason I have the rivets in there and the clamps on is to make sure that the angle iron pieces don't shift when I'm grinding off the front. That way, when everything's put together, it'll line up perfectly. So once you've got everything lined up, you have a few rivets in the holes and the clamps on there to keep everything tight, you're ready to go and grind the front down to whatever angle you need. Okay, so once you've used your angle grinder and cleaned up the front ends of your angle iron, you're ready to cut straps out of your aluminum sheet. These straps will need to go from one side of your template to the other, and they'll need to be able to fit inside. Keep in mind that your straps aren't going to be able to go all the way to the edge because you are going to end up stitching your gauntlet together, stitching the two layers together, that is. So as you can see, I've got my margins marked out all the way around. You'll need to do the same thing and make sure that you don't go outside of those when you're measuring the strips of aluminum. I think 1 inch wide strips should be more than enough, so you're going to need a ruler and a Sharpie. Okay, so the strips that you're going to make need to be 1 inch wide by however long they need to be. So I'm going to start by cutting off just one strip, and then I will put it onto my template and see what I need. Okay, so there's my aluminum strip. Now, when you're doing this with your aluminum, you'll need to be careful because the tin snips have a tendency to leave somewhat jagged edges and they can cut you. You're now ready to figure out how long you need the various straps to be. I'm planning on having 4 straps, so with that in mind, I need to go ahead and put the angle iron in the hole that I cut. And then mark out the general areas that I want the strip to be, just where I want the strip to center. And then from there I can figure out all the particulars. Okay, so with those marks made, you're now ready to figure out how long you need your aluminum to be. So you can see where to center things and where to make your cuts. So now, you're ready to mark the holes that need drilled in the angle iron. I know you're probably going, wait a minute, why didn't we just drill those holes earlier when we were drilling the ones for the blade mounting? The reason we didn't do that is because things have a tendency when you're drilling to get off center. So it's really, really important that all of these holes line up perfectly. Once those all line up, and once you're sure that they line up, 2 things happen. First of all, you know exactly where you need to put the angle iron to make sure that everything is lined up how it's going to be when you assemble it. Secondly, you now have holes that you can put the rivets through, not pop them, but you can put the rivets through to hold things in place. Because of the ability to hold things in place, your overall design becomes better. So when you are drilling the holes for the strapping, the aluminum strapping that you now have, you don't have to worry about your angle iron sliding or shifting or getting off. No matter what happens, you can always go back to these sets of holes and line everything up from the beginning. So with that said, you can take your Sharpie. Probably be best if you put the angle iron back inside your template. That way you can see just about where it is you need your holes to be. The holes are not going to be up on the side of the angle iron where I put those markings. They're actually going to be down here, but you have a mark to carry over. You'll want the holes to be just about dead center on the side of the angle iron if you can help it. Okay, now we're ready to go drill the holes. We're going to use the exact same method we did before, same drill bit, and of course oil the bit. Okay, so with those new holes drilled, you're ready to actually figure out where the holes in your template / leather are going to be. So get everything lined up here. Now you need to mark down through the holes so that you know where they're going to be on your template and your leather. There you have those. So you're ready to punch them out. Probably would be best if you change the tip out on your hole punch that you used earlier for the eyelets, just to make sure that it's going to be the same size as the drill bit you've been using, because you want the rivets that go through there to be snug. Wow, that works really well. So with that done, you need to put your strips of aluminum, which the British incorrectly say aluminium. There is no extra I in there. Sorry. Mark out where the holes are going to be in that. Okay, so with that first one done, you just got to repeat it for however many strips that you had. Okay, so once all of your straps are marked like this, you can go ahead and drill them out. And again, make sure it is with the same size drill bit. This needs to be tight fitting, so do not use any drill bit other than the one that you've used for your angle iron. That's the only drill bit that you should be using throughout this entire build. You need to take apart the cardboard, just the 2 layers, and you need to outline each individual layer. Be very careful that you get the marks where all of the holes are going to be, and make sure that those come through clearly on the leather, and then cut it out. Okay, after cutting out both pieces of your leather, you're ready to go and punch the holes. Now, hopefully, if everything went as planned, all the holes should line up. If they're a little bit off, it's okay. You can probably form the leather around that and be alright. If they're drastically off, might still be okay. You just need to figure out which holes you want to go with. I would recommend punching the outside piece first and then checking it against your inside piece before you punch your inside piece. Then, if the holes don't necessarily match up, you can just draw the holes again on the inside piece so that they match the outside piece. But it's very, very important that both pieces match. So with that said, just get your punch. Again, this needs to be the same size punch that you figured out in the beginning. This punch needs to fit the eyelets that you purchased. Do the best that you can to line up the punch in the exact center so that your holes are on target. And then pop it. Okay, so now you should have all the holes punched in your leather, and you're ready for the next step. As you can see, I've taped mine up as securely as I can to make sure that it doesn't move and shift on me. I've lined up the holes on each other and also the edges. Now what we got to do is we got to drill holes around the edge of the leather, very small holes for the stitching. Okay, so I found out after getting through most of the building of this bracer that this next step is actually in the wrong place. So everything that I say concerning the drilling of the holes, how to do it, how far to space them, where to put the holes, everything like that is still true. It's still relevant, and it is still the steps that you need to follow, just in the wrong place. So don't actually drill the holes for the stitching until you have already riveted the 2 layers of leather around your angle iron. And then when you do that, just follow these next steps, making sure to go around the outside of the leather and then around the angle iron as well. We're going to end up stitching the edges so that the pieces of leather don't shift. As I said, we're going to be drilling small holes around the edges. I'm using a 1/16 inch bit. I'm going to put it in the drill press and then just go through and drill the holes. The holes, you'll want to start on the back side. Drill the holes probably 1/8 of an inch in from the edge of the leather. Put the holes 1/4 of an inch apart at the most. Then after you've gone around the entire outside of the inside layer of leather, you want to flip it over. And on the outer layer, you're going to need to go along the cut that you've made previously where the angle iron and the blades are going to come through, so that you'll have holes to stitch all around that as well. Then after you've done that, we're ready to harden the leather.